Yeah. So again, I think she's doing a great job. So working with her has been fantastic, understanding the ins and outs of workforce development. And I think one of the key things that we've got to consider here, as some of these companies are coming in, they're bringing their employees with them as opposed to growing Mississippi employee base. So we got to focus on making sure that we're giving the tools that are needed to our citizens via great education and opportunities for them to grow. And as they grow, then they will continue to grow our communities. So we do need more folks moving to Mississippi. I think that's a good thing. Population growth is a good thing. We just got to make sure we're getting really good folks that are coming to our state. So education as a whole, again, as I mentioned to you before, the vast majority of students will always be traditional public school students. So we got to make sure that we are taking care of our teachers in the classroom, making sure that they've got the resources that they need. The funding formula that was passed a few years ago has a couple of different mechanisms in it. One of them basically increases the funding every single year, year over year. So that's a little bit concerning to me when we see our budget and that number that continues to grow. So, is that mechanism the right thing to do? Are we seeing results for those increased dollars? And if we aren't, then clearly we need to refocus that. When it comes to school choice, again, I think we've got to stop this conversation of us versus them, or traditional public schools versus parents who want options for their children, and it should be about what's right for the child. Period. And those dollars that are used in the state are for the children's education. It's not for the institution. It's not for the superintendents. It's not for you name it. It's for the education of the child. So when we're working together like that, and I remember we took a trip to Orlando when I was in the state senate, and it was basically a traditional public school principal, and a charter school principal. And so they were meeting with us during lunch, and we were really excited about seeing this fight between the two of them. And the traditional public school principal went first, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "This is the best thing that could ever happen to us." And we were all like, "Oh my gosh, what are you talking about?" He said, "Well, we had a lot of children in our school that had disciplinary actions, and so they would disrupt the classroom, and they weren't getting what they need, but by their disruptions, they were also hurting the children in the classrooms with them." Well, when this public charter school located here, it was built around kind of a military type idea of making sure that you're getting proper discipline, etc. When these children moved to that traditional or to that public charter school, they exploded. They did great, but it also helped us to grow because those children that weren't being met by our school, their needs were being met by this school, and by them being gone, they weren't disrupting our classrooms, so our classrooms got better. So I think we've got to continue to think about how do we do it hand in hand. It can't be us versus them. You got to bring everybody to the table and see what's going to work. I've actually talked to two newer superintendents in the last month or so, and told both of them I want to. Matter of fact, one of them I was in his office, and the other one I saw him at lunch, and basically said, "I want to sit down with y'all. How do we do this together? This can't be this conversation of we're fighting over resources and good for these kids, bad for those kids. It ought to be what's great for all students in Mississippi." And that's the conversation that we need to have. And Chris, to that point, one of the really cool things one of these superintendents said, I said, "You know what? I don't want us to think about tomorrow. I want us to think about 20 years down the road. What does public education look like in 20 years?" And he said, "Well, I think you're going to see less brick and mortar. I think you're going to see more, these online opportunities. Who knows what it looks like, but I do think he's right. I think it's going more in that direction. That's exactly what you see in a lot of these, parental choice schools. They've got different opportunities of learning that better fits these students' needs. So if we can talk about this together, and what does education for all children need to look like, not just public, traditional public schools versus school choice, category. Let's move forward together. And I think that's the thing that we've got to kind of get over this us versus them conversation.
Yeah, we did a school choice panel, and we invited some voices from both sides, and the whole goal was really, people were like, this is going to be like just a, melee. But I was like, we have to get not just the facts out there about it, because that's how it turns into. It's like, well, it's bad for us or it's good for us, and then it turns into a you
Right.
against us side, or it turns into that kind of thing, like you're explaining. But everything you said was just kind of like explain that one size does not fit all. And I mean, that I didn't even think about, something like that for a school where they have a lot of disciplinary actions. But I mean, it's just, all kids are different. And I mean, you have a few yourself. So I mean, you understand that they all learn different. They all have different needs. They all have different,
They do.
abilities. Some of them excel at certain things, some of them not so much. And just that, for me, all I can think of, man, there's just like, it just seems like there's just some kind of power grab where it's like we know this about kids, and I think teachers know about that about kids, and I think parents know that about kids, that we have to look at what's best for them. And I mean, who cares? I mean, if schools are doing better, I mean, if they're doing fine, like they're going to be fine. But if there's issues like that, whether it's disciplinary, whether it's learning disabilities, whether it's actual disabilities, I mean, there could be a place where somebody wants to create something, a charter school or private school that's going to cater to those needs, and like you said, the funding should be for that kid. So competition, that's just what I see it as, and not and healthy competition that's providing a
Right.
different setting for these kids to be able to do that. I agree with you. I think it's going to look more virtual. I've heard that argument even about rural areas where it's like, well, what about where they can't reach it? Well, there's going to be a lot more trade classes. There's going to be a lot more, job shadowing
Right.
type opportunities where these kids are going straight into, working on farms and things like that, what they're probably going to do anyways. And they're just going to, learn the things that they need to learn to be able to continue, into the field that they're probably going to get into. And so, I agree with you. I think it just needs to be more about the kids and not so much about, um, y'all versus us type thing. So moving on, Secretary of State, obviously, you said this earlier. Election integrity is a major focus of yours. It was a super big deal, supporting shields like measures like the Shield Act. How do you carry that kind of commitment into the Lieutenant Governor's office, particularly with helping ensure fair elections and public trust in government? Obviously, I'll be honest with you. I'm biased, man. I don't think we're going to see another Secretary of State like you that cares so much about it. So I mean, as Lieutenant Governor, how are you going to make sure that we keep that kind of stuff in check and we don't just go in reverse with it?
Yeah. Well, for me, obviously, I always have a soft spot for the Secretary of State's office, no matter where I am. And I think one of the really cool things being in this job and seeing it up close and personal and understanding why it's so important. When we talk about election integrity, you talk about the cornerstone of democracy. If folks can't go into the ballot and cast a vote where they know that ballot is going to count and their vote will be counted, their voice will be heard, then you lose a lot of the credibility about democracy itself in our country and the way that it was built. So that's always going to be something that's important to me. I've seen the where the metal hits the road, or rubber hits the road, should I say, where folks actually go in and say, well, Michael, look, because of these pieces of legislation that's been passed and the work that you've been doing, I've got more confidence in the process now. And man, that is where we're actually doing the good work, when folks actually see the results on the ground where they can say, I've got a lot more faith in the system than I used to have. So thank you for that work. So taking that, that body of work, taking those experiences that we've worked on through elections, working in D.C. with the White House, et cetera, is something that's always going to be important to me. So that will always go, no matter where I am, Lieutenant Governor's office to dog catcher, making sure that our elections are clean and safe and protected will always be very important. So we will focus on that, continued at the Secretary of State's office. And look, election integrity, there is no finish line. That's something that's, you can't just say, well, we're there and quit. No, no, no. Bad actors will always be around. They're always going to figure out some other way to try to impact the system. So it's basically a moving target. You always got to be on top of your game, making sure that you're trying to foresee what's coming next, and that will move on to the Lieutenant Governor's office as well.
Yeah, we definitely have to keep an eye on it. I know that I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of studies, even had a professor on that kind of, election integrity is all we talked, and we went pretty deep into it. And especially as technology advances, I
Yeah.
mean, there's always going to be those folks that are going to be trying to take advantage of it. Um, and it's something that, like you said, it's a moving target. It's always going to be changing. So I'm glad that you do have such a soft spot for it, because we're going to need some eyes on it for sure. So you've been obviously a strong advocate
Absolutely.
for conservatism and pro-life legislation values. how do you see the lieutenant governor's office? I know that did a good bit this session to kind of help protect some of those things in the unborn life and traditional family values. But what else can you do, just kind of help with that legislative process and helping to continue that?
Well, number one, you got to be a watchman on the wall. You always got to see what's coming next. How can we be proactive in protecting life? One of the core functions in my mind and the way that we believe as conservatives, I mean, life is precious. You got to protect it. You got to protect the core family, the nuclear family unit. Without that, we don't exist anymore. So those are things that are really important. And being a watchman on the wall, understanding what's coming next. What do we got to do? Continue to protect the lives of the unborn. And I think that's something that, again, like elections, there is no finish line. I think you got to continue to stay active on those, seeing what's coming down from the courts, seeing what's happening in the legal system, et cetera. So, what is there a moving target? If there is, then let's be proactive on the front end as opposed to letting something happen in our state and then having to be reactive to it. So, that's another one of those issues that it's always going to be important to me. When sitting on the Senate floor and going through that debate that ultimately led to overturning Roe v. Wade, man, you think about something that monumental coming from Mississippi, just being on the front end of that and being engaged in that. That's just something that you can't just, again, throw by the wayside. You got to continue to be proactive on those issues. And Mississippi's doing a great job right now with life and protecting it. And we got to do even more. So we'll continue watching that battle as it moves forward. And there's always going to be some good versus evil in that sphere when it comes to pro-life issues. So we'll be on the watch, making sure the Mississippi babies are protected.
Awesome. So moving along, religious liberties, the role of faith in kind of public life. It's important to Mississippi, like we were saying earlier. It's great to see that we have folks like you that are moving into that public arena. How should state leaders kind of balance protecting religious freedom with ensuring that no foreign legal systems? We saw the big debate about Sharia law that actually didn't pass. Kind of to influence our courts or undermine any kind of constitutional principles like equality and free speech.
Yeah, again, I go to the term of watchman on the wall, being prepared for what's coming, and always being on the front end of that, more proactive than reactive. And I'll tell you, Chris, honestly, we're having this conversation about 2 days ago. Just it's not a fun conversation, but it's one that should be had and one that should be talked. The church has got to be the church, man. Government can't solve all issues, period. And so
Mhm.
when we think about you know FDR and LBJ and the explosion of government, a lot of that was because churches start to retract. And, well, gosh, we'll just have government here to help us, and the church doesn't have to take care of their neighbor. The church doesn't have to take care of their community. So I think we got to have a resurgence of, the word revival is always thrown around, but it really has to be the church has got to be the church, period. And that's where culture is shaped. That's who's going to shape your next, political leaders coming down in years to come. So it's really, in my opinion, a big challenge to the church. Who are you? Where are you? And are you being active in our communities? Are you helping your neighbors? So the more that we can be actual Christians and believe, not just believe in it, but be active on it, I think that takes a less of burden off the government. And so that works hand in hand. Again, you got to make sure that we've got a good framework of laws in our state to protect that, but also you got to play an active role as a church member too. It can't be just the government.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said it. I agree 100%. The church has got to be the church, and the church has got to be involved. It starts at home, I think, but like you said, that's kind of where um, your framework is built for where people are going to wind up and how they're going to, be productive in society. Is unfortunately, I think we see a lot of watered down versions of we should just pray for people and hope for the best, and that's not the case. I think we have to be educated in our congregations on principles and where we should be involved and not just sitting back and waiting. Because if we're not, being those watchmen, we're going to turn around and next thing you know, it's gonna look like Europe or somewhere where we're just not going to
Yeah.
recognize what's going on around us. And God forbid, I don't think Mississippi's going to have that problem. But if we're not involved, if we're not paying attention, it can sneak up on us. So I know Texas, for example, is
And
is
Chris,
definitely
look,
having an issue.
yeah,
Go ahead.
to that point, I know we've seen several states where the evangelical base just isn't voting like it used to. Man, that
Mhm.
is worrisome. That is scary for our country. So you can't just fall back on your hunches there and be comfortable. You got to play an active role. America doesn't just happen. It doesn't just go on without us working hard to make it happen. It comes by sacrifice. It comes by hard work. And who better, than believers to go and do that work? So, um, man, right on with your point there. It's really important.
Yeah, 100%. So what are kind of some overarching, visions for Mississippi under your potential leadership as lieutenant governor, particularly in making the state, more competitive for families? We talked about a little bit about that, and we talked about some businesses, but also for young people who kind of want to build their lives here. I think we've seen a lot of young people graduate college and move to other states, and we talked about workforce development a little bit. But what are some other things that we can do to just keep our young graduates here in Mississippi and make it more affordable for young families. Fortunately, we've been blessed. We've been lucky. We've been able to kind of do the thing and buy a home and have a family, and we're okay. But I look around and I work with a lot of young people, and I'm like, man, they're not. It starts at home. A lot of these folks don't have, the home structure, um, to kind of help them lead that way. That's another reason why we do what we do at Merge, is just kind of inform them on this stuff. But they want to move to Texas, they want to move to California, they want to move to New York, and I'm like, wow, like you just you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And I'm just like, what else can we do to help keep these people here and want to build and live their lives here.
Yeah, so I tell you, one of the things that we've really been proud of, and probably one of the best things that I've done as Secretary of State, is our ambassador program, where we're bringing 75 high school seniors in every year. We do 2 in-person summits and then do monthly Zoom calls with them, introducing them to CEOs around the state, letting them understand the opportunities that are here. But basically, the program is, number one, we teach them about elections, why it's important that they engage. Every one of them does a voter registration drive from their high school, so really important to us there. Number two, how does state government work? If I want to advocate on behalf of something, where do I even start? And then number three is basically a mentorship. I want them to understand that they've got leaders in this state that are going to listen to them, that are going to hear their concerns, then that basically going to do something about it. It isn't just talk and listen. It's also, how do we be active to make sure they understand we want them in Mississippi. So what are the policies that are important to them to bring them back to our state? So having someone that is trying to be a mentor to our future leaders, and look, these are the best and the brightest. They are fantastic young individuals. So building those relationships, how can I help them advance their careers here in Mississippi? When they know they've got an advocate here on the ground, I think that means so much to them, but also so much to me. I can learn from them. I can listen to them and listen to all of Mississippi and understand, again, what are those issues that you're so concerned about? And how do we make sure that you're keeping your families and your future income here in Mississippi to continue to help us grow? So through that, you start to talk about opportunities. You start to talk about quality of life. I go back to conservation that I mentioned earlier. Man, Mississippi is a fantastic place to live and grow a family. But these young folks are really interested in, well, is there a Top Golf? Well, actually, yeah, we've got one of at the time the 98 Top Golf in the whole entire world was here in Mississippi. Why did they locate here? Because they see good things that are happening. As we see more companies like that are coming in that are addressing these quality of life needs, as we spend more money on conservation, giving access to hunting and fishing and kayaking and these different types of things that our younger individuals want to do, that quality of life matters. So making sure we're listening to them, providing them job opportunities, and also building a state where that quality of life is off the charts. I think that's how we really do it to bring them here. And so, as you said, affordability is key, and you just mentioned it. You've had the ability that the American dream is alive and well, especially in Mississippi, where you can come and buy a home, and that's the American dream, man. I want to purchase. I don't want to just rent the rest of my life. I want to be able to afford a home. I want to be able to afford a yard for my family to play in. I was talking to some students from Ole Miss a few weeks ago. One of them was from Florida, and he said, "Michael, I think man, if I were you, I'd be talking more about this affordability that I'm seeing in Mississippi." He said, I'm not going back to Florida because I can't afford to buy a house, but I can here. And so I'm going to buy a house, have a job, and start that American dream because it's affordable and it's available for me right here in Mississippi. So that story's got to continue to be told, but you're living it, Chris. You're right in the middle of it. So Mississippi's just such a great place, and we got to continue telling that story. Too many times we hear this national narrative that beats down on us. You can't read, you can't wear shoes, you don't wear shoes. You're just a bunch of country bumpkins. And look, man, I love a good country bumpkin. But we can do so many good things in this state, and we got to continue to preach that around the state. So we will believe in ourselves and continue doing great things that we're already doing. But just letting our young people know those opportunities are here, they exist. You can stay right here and build your family and your careers and live the American dream.
Yeah, and just kind of tracking back the ambassador program, I think is great. I recommended that to several people over the past, year or two, just because I'm like, that's how you change things. You got to get involved. You got to know what's going on. You got to know what to look for, and we're truly blessed with Mississippi and where we live, and just kind of what's going on here. You mentioned a few of my favorite things: golf, kayaking, fishing. Like it's just where else can you do that almost year round? And we
Yeah.
just I wish more people would understand that. I think, like you said, they just kind of see this national narrative sometimes that you have to go somewhere else, or your life is to be an influencer or something like that. I don't know, but if we just kept it simple, I think a lot more people would understand that. And we, like you said, we continue to share that story that you can be successful and you can have a good job and you can build a life. It's not as impossible as it seems. So, if elected, what would
Right.
success look like in your first term? Are there any kind of measurable goals, like just on jobs or infrastructure or education outcomes or government efficiency that you've kind of like set for yourself?
Well, number one, I think success is a functioning government. Having relationships with the speaker, a relationship with the governor, relationship with the other statewide officials and agency heads, where we can actually talk about what are the things that you need to have a functioning government that focus on, the core functions that you should be providing Mississippians. So that's number one. How do we have a functioning government where it looks like hey, those folks can actually work in Jackson, they can actually get things done? Man, that's really important. I hear that across the state. Folks are tired and fed up of this, um, you know, going back and forth, this sophomore in a sense. Well, you killed my bill, so I'm going to kill your bill, and well, you can't have that because I can't have this. We got to get
Hmm.
past that. People in Mississippi deserve better, and that's what we're going to be working on. So I think that's the first measure of success. Are you actually getting work done? Are you being functional? The second piece there was, are you delivering on conservative, issues? And what does that look like? Again, I think that goes back for us. When I go across the state, we're going to be doing a kitchen table tour, as I mentioned to you earlier, in August, and listening to Mississippians. What are those things that are so important to you that you're seeing that either number one, the government is overreaching and they need to get out of the way, or number two, they aren't providing a core function that would make your life better. So how do we collect those ideas from Mississippians and then deliver on them as we get elected, Lord willing? So that's number one. Again, functional. Number two, we're actually delivering conservative results to the people of Mississippi.
Great. I think those are some really good ways to kind of put the, like you said, the rubber to the road and kind of prove what you're doing. So, final question. Many voters want to know the person behind the candidate. I think that's we get the talking points, we get the platform, but beyond policy, what motivates you most to just kind of seek the office of lieutenant governor at this position in your career, and obviously with a family. It's politics are hard on the family. So, what just kind of motivates you to do this?
Yeah, look, for me, it's always been where is there a position where you could do more good for the state of Mississippi? As a pastor's kid, the thing that my mom and dad drilled into me was number one, you love God. Number two, you love others. Well, how do you love others? You serve them. So I think every capacity in which I've been able to serve the state, it's always been my two guiding things: love God, love others, and by loving them, you serve them. So how do you make it better for them to have better lives? And Chris, sometimes I think we get as politicians and as elected officials, we always want to see, well, did I get a bill passed? Well, did I get this policy? Did I get that policy? At the end of the day, when I can actually help a single mom, get access to her tax refund that got somehow hung up just because of some bureaucrat, hit the wrong key on a keyboard or whatever. Small things like that, where you actually improve someone's life because of the position that you're in, and you had that influence, that ability to call and pick the phone up and say, "Hey, you need to reverse this error so this person can get their tax refund so they can buy diapers for their child." Those are the things that actually should be the trophies that we put in our case. Do you help people? Do you make their lives better because of the power that you have? And so, I think Lieutenant Governor's office, we can do so much good there. It can't be about me. It has to be about my team and the people of Mississippi. So that's why I think it's the right move for us. I've got a good piece about it. And in politics, when the Lord puts something in my heart that I feel like I can go do more good, then that's what I'm going to take a shot at. And I don't have to win to be successful. If it's not his plan ultimately, and it's time for me to go home, I'm going to be just fine. And this is not what defines who I am. So I don't ever want it to be, well, gosh, he just wants to be lieutenant governor. No, I want to help people. And that's the area that I think right now, the office that we could do the most good for Mississippi. So that's why we're running. And look, Lord willing, we'll be able to serve in the Mississippi Senate as lieutenant governor and get some good things done.
Awesome. Yeah, 100% about service, and I think you said it best. It's just it's a matter of always wanting to serve, and it's the little wins that end up being the bigger wins. And I think too many do get tied up in did my bill pass or just that back and forth. And I ran for office. I ran for alderman here in the city of Pearl at one point, and we didn't win. But I figured out after that between this organization and working with some other groups that we've had a lot more influence, and we've just been able to do a lot more good. And I'm like, that's what God wanted, and it worked out better. And there's still some
Yeah.
questions about some other offices in the future, but I'm like, I feel like I get more done in the capacity where, like you said, we know who to call, we know which buttons to push, we know which angles to take to get some things done for people that have questions, and it's just educating people. Honestly, that's where I see it. I'm like, we're just educating people about what this process is, because a lot of people feel like they're lost and they're not included in it, or they're not a part of it, and that's just not the case. So that's our goal, is to, again, expose them to people like you. We're going to share this on all our social media pages, on our Merge Mississippi YouTube page. So 30,000 people strong there across Mississippi and across the United States will get to see this, and we'll look at an endorsement hopefully coming up soon, and because we appreciate you and everything you've done, and taking the time to have the conversation with us, and answer some questions about who you are and why you want to do this. We'll be praying for you, and if there's anything that we can do for you, we'll be here. So I appreciate you.
Buddy. Yeah, man. Look, grow where you're planted. You're doing a great job with that. So let's go. Let's make it better.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Michael. We will talk to you soon.
Chris.
All
All right,
right. God
buddy.
bless.